set up at the Red Zone Sports Bar behind the Travel Lodge in Saskatoon. Rookie camp wrapped today. And Dave, Seth Hundeby was taken in the 4th round, 34th overall, and Daniel Weeb, 8th round, 69th overall. And I think for a lot of us, we will always cheer a little harder for anybody with Saskatchewan ties or roots. But the one thing that I always worry about, how do they stack up to the rest of the competition at rookie camp? Were they noticeably able just to fit in and not stand out for the wrong reasons, if you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Basically, just to get you up to speed with what happened today at camp, it was the final day of rookie camp. They were supposed to be on the field until 11:30-ish. They actually wrapped up almost an hour early as Coach Mace, wanted to give the players a bit of a break. They have been competing hard and working hard. And to that point, he stopped what they were doing to bring in a compete period. And that's where we got to see Daniel Weeb, for example, as the offense went against the defense. It was receiver against defensive back or linebacker. And Daniel Weeb, he made a heck of a catch. However, Gordon Gilroy, the equipment manager who was closest to the sideline at the time, ruled that he was out of bounds, which gave that rep to the defense. But all in all, it was the offense that were victorious.
Gordy, give the kid. There's no video replay. Gordy, come on. Don't throw the flag.
Wow.
Just give him the touchdown.
The hometown crowd was very much impressed with the reception that he made in the back corner of the end zone. It was a terrific play. Whether he was inbounds or not, we'll have to debate that later. As far as Seth Hundeby goes, one more thought on Daniel Weeb, pardon me, is the fact he can't coach height, right? And that's what he has to overcome. He stated it brilliantly when he joined us on the SportsCage, saying that I just answered, hey, have you heard of Weston Dressler? I think I can do the same. Not he's the same player, not the Hall of Famer, but he believes that height isn't going to be a disruptive force for him in his trajectory towards a professional career. For Seth Hundeby, to answer that question, Seth looked amazing. He was fast. He knew where he had to be. It was like he had been in the playbook for months as opposed to a few days. He looked really, really good. And the way he performed, he was kind of playing with house money. You know what I mean? And the fact that he's already said, I am going back to finish my education next year. That's what I'm going to do. So every rep that he took was just a bonus for him to get that much better and that much more efficient and understand what he needs to do when it's time to compete for a job next year, which he says he is going to do, that he is going to go ahead and be ready for that challenge.
All right, give me one name on offense and one name on defense. You can go more if you want, that impressed you over these past couple of days.
Trent Penix, the running back on offense, he seemed to pick up and seemed to be I like using the term violent runner. I'm not sure that you can really use that in this instance, but he hit the hole very, very hard, right? So he was at full speed, 1-2 strides in, and that running back room is going to be very, very crowded when the vets arrive. So he made a statement for himself. Antoine Brooks Jr., I thought, was sensational. He was on the practice roster for the Riders at the end of last year, meaning that he comes back in his second season, deemed a first-year player, but he's got quicks, he's got smarts, and he talked to me today after the workout saying, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm starting to see the game slower because I understand where that 12th man fits in. I understand what my eyes have to see and recognize before the snap happens. So that's pretty remarkable. And consider the fact that he's kind of following in the footsteps of Kerry Joseph, right? Remember back in the day, Kerry Joseph, he was a quarterback that was converted into a defensive back, and that's where he played with the Seattle Seahawks in the National Football League. Well, young Antoine Brooks Jr., he was a quarterback. He wrecked his wrist and ankle 1 year. So in college, they transformed him to a member of the secondary. He played nickelback for them. So in that instance, he believes that he also is inside the head of the quarterback because he knows what they're looking for in reading, which he also believes gives them an advantage. So those players look really, really good. Again, there are going to be cuts that have to be made before Sunday, and those are going to be very interesting and very difficult for the coaching staff to make.
With training camp opening on Sunday and the stacked lineup, the Riders are bringing back, would you say 85 to 90% of last year's squad? This is one of the highest numbers ever of returning players. Are you of the same mindset than me that every rep from the time that whistle blows on Sunday is going to matter because the talent and competition level is so high?
Well, I'll tell you right now, my first question for Coach Mace on Sunday is going to be the fact is that in this offseason, you talked about continuity. Does continuity lead to complacency? So does that mean that we're going to see guys taking time off or I don't want to say mailing it in because no professional male athlete ever mails it in, but maybe taking their roster spot for granted. I'm curious to see because last year with Coach Mace, everybody had to earn their spot. There was no doubt about it. Probably the only solid guy that was Trevor Harris going in and Jamarcus Hardrick. Now there is competition right across the board, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to go ahead and handle that because, like you say, every rep is absolutely going to matter.
Like you'd mentioned, that running back group, a lot of us curious about that, and that overhaul on D-line. There's some faces that are gone, but there's some new faces coming in, like a Mike Rose, and I think a lot of us are very curious to see how that's going to go. And Dave is set up at the Red Zone Sports Bar behind the Travel Lodge in Saskatoon. Rookie camp wrapped today. Main camp will start on Sunday. But what a lot of people maybe don't know is that the quarterbacks were at rookie camp. There just wouldn't be enough arms. We know who Trevor Harris is. How are Jake Maier and Tommy Stevens as Saskatchewan Roughriders after the first 2.5 days in your surmise, Dave?
Well, my takeaways, again, we don't really get close to the quarterbacks, especially they're not made available to the media during rookie camp, which is fair, right? It's a process. And as you mentioned, there's just not enough arms if you don't bring them out. So they do come out. Trevor Harris, to me, I thought looked really good in the fact that he looks very fit, very trim, and he looks really dialed in. Jake Maier behind him, had a very similar look. Again, very athletic looking. He looked like he was dialed in. And again, he has got a relationship with Mark Bueller. So the two of them would converse back and forth quite a bit over what they saw. And of course, he understands the system that Mark wants to use here in Saskatchewan. So Jake Maier looked pretty good, again, becoming assimilated and a little more familiar with the receivers that he's starting to work with and learn a little bit about, although it will be an entirely different group when main camp arrives on Sunday. Tommy Stevens was wearing the number 17 of Jackson Ford. If you missed that, Tommy Stevens came in and really wanted to wear 17. So Jackson Ford put in a call to Nelson Lacombo. So Jackson is going to be wearing Nelson Lacombo's number 21 jersey. The reason being is that, of course, that's got the lineage with his grandfather, Al Ford, and then Nelson's going to shift up a little bit higher to the number that he wore in college. But Tommy Stevens, who we get an opportunity to see on the screen as we speak, he wanted what he called a quarterback number. So he was wearing the number 17. He was a big body out there, and he's got something to prove. When we talked to him just after he had signed with the Riders, he mentioned the fact that he's not just a runner. And Jeremy O'Day, right? The runs that we saw on the screen and all Rider Nation can recall, the big runs on short yardage situations that he broke off against us. Jeremy O'Day said, well, we don't want him running against us anymore, so let's have him join us. And Tommy has come in and said, yeah, you know what? I can do that. I can physically do that, but I also can throw the ball. And he threw the ball with purpose and intent over the last 3 days. And then, of course, you make your way down. You've got Anton Amandrud, who is out of the University of Saskatchewan. He didn't have a lot of opportunity to take reps, but he definitely has been in the meetings and been learning from the pros that are around him. Jack Cohn, who, again, Notre Dame grad, he spent last year as the number 3 quarterback for most of the season, of course, was elevated to number 2 when Trevor Harris was injured. So Jack Cohn knows the offense, and he executed it at a high level. And then I don't want to say unknown because we did see him a little bit. We do have an understanding of Michael Hires, but again, he also was throwing the ball. He was moving around in the pocket and, again, looked fairly athletic. It's tough to get a read on what the quarterbacks are, though, Maz. I know everybody wants a definitive answer, how it looks. But, again, it's hard to judge. But I can tell you it is going to be a competitive quarterback room when Sunday arrives.
One of the conversations I got into with a fellow passionate Rider fan a few weeks ago was the backup quarterback situation. And the fact that my point is that since Jake Maier is on a very affordable contract, it's not some giant big money $350,000 contract. So Trevor Harris is your starter, but everybody else is kind of in that same ballpark money-wise. And I'm just going on money. So, a lot of times because of investment, there's guys, they got to sit on a certain spot on the depth chart because, listen, we're paying all this money. There has to be. Like Maier and Stevens and even Jack Cohn, who you've been high on since last year's training camp. Do you think that there will be a real competition for a number 2? Basically because the financials are very similar. You're not hamstrung by paycheck. If this is talent, do you think that there is a real shot at a number 2 battle?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I take Coach Mace, I take Jeremy O'Day at their word that you earn your spot on the roster in Saskatchewan. There's nothing that is going to be given to anyone. Trevor Harris has earned the number one spot on the roster, hands down. We know that. Number two, again, you would have to think that the inside track is Jake Mayer, because you're betting that, again, he has got a lot of experience under his belt at a very young age. And I would call it a show me contract, right? You show me what you can do and we'll get you a contract. And that's
Yeah.
what it's coming down to, I think, with Jake Mayer, is the fact that he's betting on himself, believes he can be a starter and a good starter in this league. And the Riders believe the same. So they're going to give him every opportunity to do that. Tommy Stevens comes in, wants to throw the football. He's really good at short yardage situations. And that was one area the Riders had some difficulties with last year, coming into those second and short, third and short situations, especially late in the year. And again, nothing against Shea Patterson. It just wasn't working for him. And again, with that patchwork offensive line in front of him, that's a big part of it. But you need those conversions. And I think that's where Tommy Stevens comes in. So where does that lead a guy like Jack Cohn, right? He came on, I thought, terrifically well at the end of last year. He developed accordingly as the backup for the number of weeks that he had that opportunity. And then, let's face it, in the last game of the year, he came in and it looked like it was going to be Shea Patterson's game to play. But the number of reps and the way that he approached the week, he was given that opportunity to come in and play 3 quarters against the Calgary Stampeders in a meaningless game. It wasn't meaningless for him, and he learned a lot, I would submit, along the way. So Jack Cohn knows he's up against it, but I think it's an open competition.
Okay, that's good. The double C's are running things, Curtis and Colson. Curtis, do we have Coach Mace from today in conversation? Can we run that?
Well, Coach, everybody's looking for an edge, obviously. Does a mariachi band at the end of rookie camp give you that edge?
I got to tell you, man, shout out to Aldo, our new intern. You know, he hails from Mexico, so I told him, I said, hey, give us a little bit of your home country flavor, and he overdosed. I mean, the whole day it was Mexican music, but we were loving it, man. It was a good little change up.
It seemed like a very up-tempo and high-emotional period today, albeit a little bit shorter than what was anticipated.
Yeah, no, we had a little showcase, you know, the little compete period, which was good, got everybody riled up, and then, you know, we just wanted to make sure that these guys were healthy enough to push as you know, camp starts, the main camp starts, and the vets start rolling in here. So it's a little bit, they've been completely dialed, man. It was awesome to see, just showing a little bit of love to them.
So does that mean that you've seen what you wanted to see?
I think so, for the most part. I think we got a good grasp on the rooks that are out here. Very pleased, obviously, from the most part, and you know, we're just looking to push forward here.
You mentioned versatility yesterday when you were talking about Antoine Brooks Jr. How big of a key and a factor is a player's versatility being able to fit into what you want them to do?
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. You know, the more that you can do, obviously puts you in better favor to help the team. And also, you know, from a schematic standpoint, to be able to have guys that can move around a little bit, you know, it's good for disguising and stuff like that defensively, and then also offensively getting guys out of jams. And, of course, special teams. You know, the more positions you can play there, if injuries happens or whatever, we can get us out of a jam. So versatility is very important.
You're starting to see some of the vets trickle in. What's the game plan between now then and Sunday morning?
Just, you know, continue to have everything prepared, and, you know, we got a few staff meetings coming up here, and just making sure that everything, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and just making sure that, you know, we cover up our work that we've done to get here to this point, but now it's just kind of hurry up and wait.
One more from me. I know that family is important to this organization, and to you personally, it's Mother's Day this weekend. Want to give a shout out?
Yeah, shout out to my mom. Mom, I miss you. I love you. I'll text you or FaceTime you today. But certainly, you know, we talk about that. We'll talk to the team about it. You know, my wife's going to come up with the kids over the weekend, so I get to I missed the anniversary, but we get to spend Mother's Day, so I'm hoping that's good enough.
That's a smart guy. Listen, you don't need a playbook to draw that one up. Listen, it sometimes it's the simplest play, Dave. How to stay out of trouble with the wife. You know, just although sometimes the most complicated play too, because you think you have the right play dialed up, and you run it to perfection, and somehow the fumble happens in the end zone, and it's a touchback, and what? Hey.
Okay,
Speaking
I know
of Mother's Day. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say the 2Cs. So you heard me talk about the music that was being played today at training camp, right? And you know the da 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 da. What song is that? I was trying to think of it all day because the only other one that I could identify, oh, there's La Cucaracha, right? You know that one. But for a mariachi band to be playing that at the end of camp, like I could not. Everybody knows the song, but what's the name of it? Anyways, sorry, I digress. What was the question?
I think if it was 20 years ago, we could use Shazam to do that. Is Shazam still a thing? I don't know. Colson
sure.
and Curtis would have to weigh in because they're the younger generation, and they usually tell me like, "Yeah, no one ever says that anymore. That's not cool anymore." All right. Farhan Lalji's coming up in just a bit. Oh, and by the way, a special Friday edition of press coverage with Glenn Suter just after 5:00. But of everybody that was on the D line, out of all of these unknowns that we don't know anything about, is there a name that you had that did some nice work that may end up coming to camp on Sunday and be competing with some of the vets?
Well, what my system is during camp is I put a star beside the name once they made a notable play. And the most stars that I had along the defensive line is Eric Black, of course, signed as a free agent in the offseason by the Riders, a big body, very quick body. And he made things difficult on the offensive line when they were working different drills. So to me, he got my most stars. But again, that's far from factual when it comes down to the pros that are inside the Saskatchewan Roughrider coaches' rooms. But I thought he looked really, really good.
All right. Well, that's good. If you missed it, there's some CFL news. Braden Lenius, former Rider, retired. I think it's because of injuries. Dante Bull, who was the #1 pick a couple of years ago for the Ottawa Red Blacks, he retired as well because of injury. The Zach Clara situation, yeah. There's and then Christian Albright, who spent time as a Saskatchewan Roughrider, ended up on the Ottawa Red Blacks retired list as well. So nothing's a given, and that's where I think a lot of us, until Sunday happens and you actually see them on the field for the Riders in a jersey out there, there's always a name or two that either trickles in or trickles out because life happens and stuff happens, and that's just how the CFL game shakes down. All right, it's time to take a break. Oh, by the way, the steak sandwich, if we're giving a rating out of 10, where does the steak sandwich this afternoon fall, Dave?
Oh, that was a solid 5. 5 out of 5. 5 stars. Perfectly cooked. Mushrooms and the onions that were fried on top. Oof.
Okay, good. It's funny. I said out of 10, and you said, 5. I'm like, okay, but you're 5 out of 5, so that would be 10 out of 10. All right, okay.
10 out of 10. Yeah, that's the metric version.
Dave Thomas is with us. Rookie camp wrap today. Main camp for the Riders opens on Sunday. And Dave, for a lot of people, to follow along, just explain the socials and the SportsCage.com coverage that you and Luke are going to provide over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. We're going to give Luke the keys to the social media channels during workouts, so watch for that. Of course, he'll give you his unique take on what's happening on the field. Go to sportscage.com. You'll see where it says Rough Riders training camp reports every day there, as well as inside coverage into some of your favorite players and some of the favorite players that you're getting ready to meet. It's going to be a lot of fun.